Warning: sensitive images.
Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule.
The village. We need to leave now too.
Ukraine war journalists, heroes on the side of truth. Continue watching to find out more.
Very close.
That shell weighs
Dozens of people like this man who are having to be foot at the edge of the factory.
Don't attack nations. Don't attack people. Attack war instead.
Magnanimous viewers, when you are in the province of Papua, Indonesia, the Lani people, one of the local indigenous groups, will greet you by saying Kinaonak in their Western Dani language. My name is Kekai. The nature-loving Papuans are glad you feel one with God's creations and cherish all opportunities to grow spiritually during your sojourn on earth. May the divine always be with you. Welcome to our show, Ukraine War Journalists, Heroes on the Side of Truth. Our program today is dedicated to the journalists who have and continue to risk their lives in the line of duty reporting the truth during the current Russian invasion of Ukraine. The journalists who fearlessly and honestly inform the public about the events they cover are truly heroes. Sadly, not all are spared from the consequences of performing this vital work. They face many dangers, from being physically exposed while filming and documenting what's occurring at the battlefront to being persecuted or killed for informing the world's citizens about Russian propaganda. In March 2022, the Kremlin closed many foreign news outlets and threatened to imprison journalists for up to 15 years if they were caught spreading information against Moscow. This harsh treatment of journalists resulted in the withdrawal of all international news channels reporting from the country. Reporters Without Borders, or RSF, assists journalists in documenting the war by reminding the Ukrainian and Russian authorities to allow for their safety based on international agreements. According to RSF, the Russian army has deliberately targeted journalists, the media, and Ukraine's telecommunications infrastructure to prevent the Ukrainian people from accessing independent news and information. In spite of adversities, brave journalists from Ukraine, the US, England, France, and other countries continue to defy these threats and fulfill their duties. Thanks to their timely reporting, the world has a chance to closely follow the war's progress and to be aware of the horrors inflicted on Ukrainian civilians in heavily attacked cities such as Donbas, Bucha, Borodyanka, Irpin, Kiev, Kharkiv, Mariupol, Odessa, and Poltava. As early as March 2022, US photojournalist Lindsay Addario witnessed the death of a mother and her children killed by a mortar in Irpin city. She took a picture of the victims that the world viewed after it was published in the New York Times. This powerful image of a war crime sparked the international community to step up its condemnation of Russia. Ukrainian journalist and writer Maxim Eristavi spoke to MSNBC and exposed the Russian government's past aggression toward other countries. warning that history is repeating itself and must be stopped. At the Time 100 Summit 2022 in New York City, Sevgil Musayeva, chief editor of the independent Ukrainian news outlet Ukrainskaya Pravda, informed the public about the nature of a war journalist's work.
When you cover a war as a journalist, you face grief and death every single day. The truth is harder to communicate and to comprehend in war. It can get lost in the scale of the grief and in the statistics. It's under such conditions that you value the opportunity to tell the truth even more, to tell the story of a person who died, lost relatives, or miraculously escaped. And it is this work that ensures that the stories of the victims are told, and the story of Ukraine is told.
Time and again, journalists have brought international attention to crimes committed by the Russian government that would have otherwise gone unnoticed. Meanwhile, some journalists have also shared their appreciation for the courage, nobility, and resilience of the Ukrainians they encounter. Scott Peterson, a war correspondent for the Christian Science Monitor, reported from Kiev on the inspiring 15-year-old Anastasia Prihoda, who made many trips transporting more than 200 injured and elderly Ukrainians out of her hometown. Even after sustaining multiple injuries resulting from Russian troops' attacks, Anastasia kept driving for several kilometers. Her unyielding spirit and fearless attitude earned her the nickname Schumacher, after the famous German race car driver Michael Schumacher. Unfortunately, many courageous journalists have paid with their lives in order for the world to follow the war on the front lines. According to the Ukrainian government, by June 6, 2022, 32 journalists had died in Ukraine. To name a few, the heroic journalists who have perished include the following: US Fox News cameraman Pierre Zakrzewski and Ukrainian journalist Alexandra Kovshinova, Maxim Levin, Ukrainian photographer, videographer, and longtime contributor to Reuters. French journalist Frédéric Leclerc-Imhoff, US journalist, documentary filmmaker, and photojournalist Brent Anthony Renaud, Ukrainian journalist and camera operator Yevgeny Sakun. While some journalists have been able to survive close encounters with Russian forces, they live with varying degrees of trauma and loss. Fox News correspondent and British journalist Benjamin Hall was injured while covering the war outside Kiev, Ukraine. 3 weeks later, Mr. Hall posted the following on Twitter.
To sum it up, I've lost half a leg on one side and a foot on the other. One hand is being put together, one eye is no longer working, and my hearing is pretty blown. But all in all, I feel pretty damn lucky to be here. And it is the people who got me here who are amazing.
In April 2022, CNN senior international correspondent and award-winning journalist Ben Wiedemann, along with his 5 crew members, narrowly escaped explosions from Russian artillery shells. During an interview with CNN, Mr. Wiedemann said, "We took cover and then another 2 shells landed, one of them maybe 10 yards from one of our cars." We would like to take this opportunity to commend the courageous Russian journalists who have risked their lives and careers to defend the truth. In early March 2022, while appearing with a Ukrainian journalist on the BBC, Ivan Kolpakov, the editor of a Russian news site, expressed his apologies for the war, saying, "I want to say sorry to my Ukrainian colleagues. I am really sorry that we didn't stop Russian authorities from doing that." On March 14, 2022, Russian state television journalist Marina Ovsyannikova disrupted the primetime live news broadcast by holding up an anti-war sign on Russia's Channel 1 that read, "Stop the war, don't believe propaganda, you are being lied to." During a conference with Supreme Master Television team members, our beloved Supreme Master Ching Hai praised this extraordinary act by Marina Ovsyannikova.
Such a woman is worth more than 100,000 soldiers going fighting blindly.
Yes.
She's more than a general. She's more than a hero.
Yes.
She went against the whole system of this secret service and communism, controlling and dictatorship and all that.
Yes, Master.
For which people would have been poisoned or killed or imprisoned forever.
Yes.
She knew all that and she still did it. It's so wonderful. It's heaven-inspired.
For her defiant action, Marina was interrogated for 14 hours with no right to a lawyer and no contact with her family. She was also fined by a Moscow court for discrediting Russia's army. Ukrainian President His Excellency Volodymyr Zelensky, a Shining World Leadership Award for Bravery laureate, thanked Marina for her courage. Later, Marina was hired by German media group Welt as a freelance correspondent. On May 9, 2022, Russia's Victory Day, two Russian journalists posted numerous messages on news sites condemning the war. The Russian investigative reporter Andrei Soldatov founded the website agentura.ru, which monitors Russia's security services. After fleeing the country for exposing purges and failings in Russia's security services, he has been placed on a wanted list in Russia and had his bank accounts frozen. On June 21st, Nobel Peace Prize recipient Russian journalist Dmitry Muratov auctioned his Nobel medal for a record $103.5 million to help Ukrainian child refugees. We would also like to highlight 4 Russian media outlets that fought to keep their right to independent journalism by filing lawsuits against media regulator Roskomnadzor and the Prosecutor General's office for blocking their websites. Our salute goes to the editors of Mediazona, Republic, Taig.info and Lentachil for their determination to keep Russian citizens informed about the truth of this unfounded war waged by the Russian government against the innocent Ukrainians. We cannot praise enough the bravery and selflessness shown by the journalists covering this brutal war of the Russian Federation against the independent and sovereign country of Ukraine. We would like to humbly send our most sincere condolences to the families of every journalist who has perished while selflessly working to document the facts of the war for the rest of the world. We pray for the safety and strength of all the journalists on duty fighting for justice and freedom alongside the indomitable Ukrainian people.
This is the worst sin in the world, to eat meat after killing the animal. Sant Ajab Singh Ji Maharaj, vegetarian.
Compassionate viewers, thank you for your company today during Ukraine War Journalists, Heroes on the Side of Truth. Up next is Susanna Chavez, vegan, from slaughterhouse worker to vegan activist, part 1 of 2. Through God's mercy, may harmony be bestowed on humanity as we make peace with one another and all members of the animal people kingdom.
Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule and suprememastertv.com/show.
Nos programmes offrent plusieurs langues. Veuillez visiter suprememastertv.com/schedule et suprememastertv.com/show.
Nuestros programas ofrecen varios idiomas. Visiten suprememastertv.com/schedule y suprememastertv.com/show.
برامجنا متوفرة بالعديد من اللغات. يرجى زيارة suprememastertv.com/schedule و suprememastertv.com/show.